this presentation so that this will also be posted up on our website afterwards. So again, welcome everyone, and let's begin. One of the things I want to start with is we did talk about this before, but there's been a lot of questions on this, and we have changed the way, if you use what's called the customer web portal for your clients to log in and access their account, we added a new security feature to it. So if they go to your branded web portal and they click on the new customer registration, you'll see that there's a new field here. It's called the registration key. When they log in, they need to have their customer number and their billing zip code and their registration key. Excuse me, and they need to have all three of those in order to register a new account. Now, let me just jump into a customer right here. So I'm going to just jump into here. I'm going to open up this customer, Michael Marks. And that registration key can be found in a few different areas. The first is if you go into any of your customers, and remember that registration key is unique for each customer of yours. You could click on Edit, and it will tell you the registration key. So this is the unique registration key for this customer, Michael Marks. And there you could see what it is. Now, let me go ahead and come back and come out of there. The other thing is, when you print an invoice, if the web portal's turned on for that customer, and let me just show you this real quick here. Okay, you should see an invoice coming up on your screen right now. This is what the invoice will look like to the customer. And on the bottom of the invoice, it says to pay online, please visit. And that would be your unique domain for AlarmBiller. And then it would say registration key. That's the same registration key. So this is where they would get that in order to be able to log in if they don't already have an account online. And we did that just to add additional security. And this way it makes it so that a user doesn't accidentally, if they type in the wrong customer number and it happens to be the same billing zip code, they're not able to log and create the account. And it creates just a little level of extra added security. So just be mindful of that, and make sure you explain that to your customers if they're going to log into the web portal. Okay, so let's jump back into AlarmBiller, and let's start talking about some of the new features. And we're going to start with talking about refunds and voids. So let's start off by doing that, and we're going to work in this customer. I have a customer I created, Peter Franklin here, so I'm going to open up that customer. And the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about doing a void. So you now have the ability to void a credit card or an e-check transaction up until the time it's been actually processed and settled by the Forte, which is the credit card merchant provider. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and just create a new transaction for this customer. So I'm going to come over here to credit cards, and I'm going to say new transaction. And I'm just going to pick a credit card that's on file for this customer, pick this MasterCard, and we're going to pick, and I'm just going to pay this invoice right here. Oops. For, let's just pay this one for $200. Okay, so I'm going to pay $200 of this this invoice with this credit card. And I'm just going to say this is okay, and I'm going to click submit payment. So it actually created the payment, and it applied it to that invoice. So we could see this invoice now has $200, so the amount due now is $200 less. And let's go ahead and click on the invoice and look at it. And if we click on payments applied, we'll see that we have this payment that was for the $200. And if we click on it, we could drill into the actual payment record. And the payment record will show us $200 was applied to this invoice. And then down here is my transaction detail. And if I click on this, this will actually take me to the actual credit card transaction. And you'll notice there's a button here that says void. And the reason why I can void it is because it hasn't been fully settled yet. Usually credit cards will settle, could be at the end of the day, but usually you'll see them settled the beginning of the next day. Now, if I void this, it's actually going to void the transaction, so it will never post to the customer's account, and it's going to automatically remove the payment from the customer. Now, you saw how I opened this transaction by drilling into the payment. I'm also going to show you another way before I do the void. I'm going to just go back to the customer manager. I'm going to click on the credit card and e-checks, and right here I can see that there's my transaction, and I could drill into my transaction right from here, and I can see the same transaction. So two different ways to get to the same area. Now, I'm going to void this by clicking void. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to void this transaction? I'm going to say OK. By choosing OK here, it voided that transaction. So the transaction has now been voided. You'll notice the response code is set to a V, telling me that it's been voided. Let's go back now to the customer manager. And we'll notice that invoice has the amount due now of $480.38. And if I go to the invoice itself and click on payments applied, you'll actually see the reversal. So it applied the payment and then it had to unapply it. We need to do that from a history point of view. Let's go back into the customer manager for just a moment. Let's go back to that credit card, and here you can see it was voided. So you'll notice there's color coding on your credit cards, your transactions. It's telling you what's been approved. Denied will be red. Red will be denied, rejected, or what's called a previously funded rejection. Green will be funded. Yellow will be voided. Blue will actually be a refunded transaction, and we'll come back to that in a moment. So if I click on this transaction now, you'll notice it has been voided, as I showed you before. But what I want to point out now is what's called the history log. So if I click on this little link right here, this is, you'll find, will be the history log of everything that we did. Okay, and we'll notice that that void, it will automatically be put into here. So we'll be able to see that this went to a void, and we know what user did it, which was Michael Marks. So which is also very nice about this is not only are we tracking, that we voided it, but we could also come into the history of that transaction and actually see who did it and when they did it. So that's a real nice feature to have within there. So that's your ability to void a transaction. And remember, you could only void it up until the point that it was settled. Once it's settled, that means the money is going to be in your account. You're going to get deposited that money. So let's come back in here to the customer manager and talk about what's called doing a refund. A refund is whenever you want to refund money to the customer because of whatever reason, an overpayment, you shouldn't have taken the money out, but you want to refund their credit card or e-check. Now, for security purposes, we have made it that you can only refund excess money you've received. So you can't just do a refund unless the customer has overpaid you, which makes sense. You wouldn't want to do a refund otherwise. So if we look at this customer, I could see they have unapplied cash on account of $100. So if I click on my payments, I can see here that this transaction right here on July 29th, we have $100, and I haven't applied this to any invoices. So unapplied cash that was received, and this was received through a check, I can refund to that customer through either a credit card or an e-check. Because my system isn't a real account, meaning this is a test account, none of my credit card transactions will actually settle. So if you notice, if I went into my credit card history here, all my transactions say that they've been approved, but they haven't actually settled. That's because this isn't a real account and there's no money that's going to be deposited in there, so it can't settle. So that's why on mine it will always say void. On yours, once the transaction has been settled, you will actually come up here and it will say refund. And you could then click refund to refund that customer right through that credit card transaction. Or what you can do is, let's go back into the customer manager. If the money is on the account, you can also do the same thing by going into the unapplied payment, and you'll notice there is now what's called a refund. You'll only see the refund if there's any unapplied dollar amount. So for example, let's go back one screen, and this payment right here has been fully applied. So if I look at this payment for $215, there's nothing left unapplied. It's been fully applied. Therefore, my refund button is no longer available. I can't refund it because there's nothing unapplied. So again, let's go back and let's go back to the payment that has the $100 unapplied. We'll click on that. And now let's say we want to refund this to the customer. We'll just click the refund. And you'll notice what it does is it says you can pick either a credit card that's on account for that customer, or you can choose an e-check if they have one. If they don't have one set up, you'd have to go into the customer manager and set one up before you can actually do that. So they have a credit card. So I'm going to do it through a credit card. So I'm going to do it to this MasterCard. And it says my maximum refund available is $100. And what do I want to refund them? So I can refund them $100. Oops, sorry about that. Or I could do any lesser amount. I could do $50. Okay? But if I try to do $101, it's going to tell me the maximum available refund is $100. So it won't allow me to refund more than is unapplied. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to do a $100 refund. I'm going to say submit refund. This will automatically submit this. It's going to give me a question and just make sure that I really want to do it. So in case I didn't want to do it, I could say cancel, but I'm going to say OK. So I'm going to say OK here, and now it's going to process that refund and automatically send that back to the customer. Customer is going to see a $100 refund on their credit card statement. Now, once you do a refund, it will not, you can't unapply that. It's going to automatically go through. So that is just something that is based upon how the system's set up to do it. Now, what the system will also do when it does the refund is it will automatically create that and add that as a part of your payment batch. And you'll see a negative $100 that will be into your payment batch for today. So if you do other credit cards, transactions, it will just be added to that, and that will be a negative amount versus a positive amount. And again, you could drill into and actually see the payment transaction right from here. Okay, so and if we jump over to the customer record and we click on our payments, you'll see that as a negative payment, $100, and it's highlighted blue because it's a refund transaction. So your refund transactions will be highlighted blue. And of course, complete history of who did it in the security log, so we know exactly what happened there. As you notice here, the unapplied payment cash now says 0 because that was fully applied. Okay, and this is the one that we just did the refund for, this $220, and so you could see that right from here, and go in there and see that this was refunded. So you could tell that this payment was refunded to the customer. Okay, so that's a refund. And remember, importance of refunds is it could only be something that was unapplied cash. So what I mean by that also is, let's say a customer has an invoice that they paid. So here's all my open invoices, if I click Show All Invoices, these are invoices that have been previously paid. So let's just jump over here and take a look at this invoice right here. And let's just say that the customer paid this invoice, and now I found out, well, they really shouldn't have paid it and I owe them a refund. What you would have to do is you could click on the payments applied. You can unapply the payment. That will reopen this invoice as an open invoice, and then you could refund that unapplied amount, and then either the customer still owes that invoice if they actually owe it, and if they don't owe it, you could then create a credit memo and apply that credit memo against that invoice to take it off the account. So if the customer paid you, you would have to unapply it, and you applied it to an invoice, you'd have to unapply it first, do the refund. Then, if you want to, you can either credit that invoice or the invoice stays open as a balance due on the customer's account. So I hope you understand that, and that makes sense. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now, or you can always submit those onto the support center, and we'll be more than happy to review this with you. Let's see, I think one question did come in. Let's see what this says. We never have accounts that do not have payments applied. Why can we not give a customer a refund from their RMR? For example, if you charge them $30 and realize it later, why can't you refund them the $30 and charge them the right amount? I'm not sure I fully understand that question. The RMR will not and do that. Oh, it looks like they just said you answered the question. So good. I'm glad I did. I think it was just that you have to have the payment applied to do that. Okay, so let's move on. Next thing I want to talk about. So we talked about refunds and voids. I talked about the customer registration. I talked a little bit about the history tracking, but I just want to point that out. This was, again, a new feature that was added, and it's right here. And you'll notice this button's going to be all over the application. So if I click History, you'll see any history changes for this customer, the customer record. So for example, if I came in here and edited this customer and I changed the name, or let's say I just add an address too, I'm going to say Suite 1234. Click Save. And now you notice if I come over here, I'll see that on today's date, Michael Marks did an update. And if I want to see the detail of that update, there it is. It was address 2. The old value was blank. The new value is Suite 1234. Now, unfortunately, with the history changes, it only took effect from the moment we added this new feature. Obviously, it couldn't go back in time and recreate everything. So for customers that you currently have had in the system, you won't see old history, but it will track everything from this point forward. If you look at an invoice, so let's go into this invoice, you'll notice there's history for the invoice. So I could see when it was added, when I made any type of updates in it. You'll also notice the user, AlarmBiller. That's going to be when anything that was actually processed by the AlarmBiller application. That's what that user is going to be. And that really takes me to my next thing that I'd like to talk about today, and that is the automation settings. So the automation settings are very powerful features within the application. These have been there. They're not brand new, but I like to just touch base on them because as talking to a lot of users, some people don't realize the power of these and don't really have these set up. So what the automation settings can do is you can use these to automatically take care of things for you. One of the most powerful things is the recurring revenue generation. And you have the recurring revenue for your regular customers, and you also have your recurring revenue if you're using any master customers. And what this will do is you could pick the day of the month you want this to run on. So for example, in my test system here, I'm telling it to run on the 15th day of the month. Because on the 15th of every month, I like to send out the recurring invoices for the next month. Okay, so as you'll see, on the next time the 15th will occur is going to be August 15th, because July 15th is already done. It's going to automatically run the invoices dated September 1st. And if I wanted to run the invoices on the 1st of the month for the current month, you would just change this to the 1st and change this to the current month. Now you'll notice on August 1st, it will generate the August recurring invoices. So let's go back and change this now to the 15th, and I'm going to change this to the next month. Because on August 15th, we're going to actually generate our September invoices. And I could say, what do I want to date those invoices? I want to date them the 1st of the next month. So I want to date them 9/1. I can also say when, and this will tell me when my credit card or funding will occur. And this is actually set up within your defaults section. So it knows that it's going to also automatically do those on September as well. So what's going to happen now, on August 15th at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time, AlarmBiller will automatically generate your recurring invoices for you. There is nothing you need to do. You will automatically get an email letting you know that the process was completed and how many invoices were created. Now, let's take it one step further. Once the invoices are generated, your recurring invoices, we can use the invoice credit delivery automation setting. If that's turned on, the system will then automatically deliver those invoices, and it does that at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it will automatically email any new invoices generated, and it will also, if you're using the mailing service, it will automatically mail those invoices for you. And that's done automatically. Again, nothing you have to do. Now, for the recurring invoices, that's great because it's going to automatically do those. But if you also created any miscellaneous invoices any day or work order invoices and haven't delivered them, this will automatically then make sure that they get delivered for you every single day. As well as the automation settings can do your automatic submission of your credit card and e-check transactions. So again, nice feature. By turning these things on, you don't have to worry about doing things on a daily basis. The system will do that automatically for you. And then the last thing in the automation setting is the expiring credit card summary. What this will do is on the first day of the month, any credit card that is scheduled to expire within 60 days, within the next 2 months, it will automatically email the customer letting them know that their credit cards are going to expire, to please either call you or to log into the web portal to update that themselves. And so the customer will get a notice out 60 days in advance, 30 days in advance, and the month that it's going to expire. So we give them a lot of notices and a lot of time to update that. Now, a question just came in, and it's a very good question, a very timely question. It says, can we set up the automation to send out our statement? The answer is today, no, but it is a feature we are working on. So we are going to add a feature to do automation for your statements, as well as we have a plan to do a collection letters and have those set up through the automation too. And collection letters will be more of like a letter that will be generated, and you'll be able to pick for how many days past due and when you want those to go out. So, and those could be done for any individual invoices as well. So those are 2 new things that will be added to the automation system, hopefully relatively soon. So hopefully you like those. Those will make it real nice for you. Okay, and if you have any other ideas for the automation settings, please send those in to us. We'd love to hear what you have to suggest. All right, I'm going to move on to something else. I'm going to go back over here to another new feature that was recently added. So I'm going to go over here to my customer, and let's type in Peter again. Let's go into Peter. And we now have the ability to do what's called a delete of an invoice. And you can only delete an invoice if certain things are true for that invoice. And as you notice, this this invoice right here, I'm not able to delete it. The delete button's not there. Let's go back into the customer real quick, and I'm going to create a new invoice. And I'm just going to pick one item code here, whatever this might be. And so I'm just going to come over here and choose, I'm going to choose save. I'm not going to deliver it. I'm just going to save it. So by doing that, you'll notice now I have a delete button. So you can delete an invoice as long as, number one, you've never delivered it to the customer. Once you deliver it to the customer, either email it, mail it, or print it, you cannot delete it because it's been delivered to the customer. At that point, you'd have to credit it off. Number two, you have to have security privileges to do it. And there is user level security. So if a user doesn't have the ability, the delete permission, they cannot delete it. Number three, your accounting period or your accounting date must still be open to be able to edit it. Once that accounting period has been closed, you won't be able to delete it. Number four, no payments have been applied to that invoice once a payment has been applied. So if any of those things are true, you cannot delete it. So if I go ahead and I delete this, it will actually delete the invoice. Okay, and are you sure you want to permanently delete the invoice? This can't be undone. I click OK, and now we'll delete that invoice. And if I go into the, oops, it says successfully deleted. Let me redo this too fast. Okay, it hasn't been done yet, but we are going to be adding into the history that invoice was deleted, the customer history. That was something, I think it's been added, it's just not out and hasn't been put into this release yet. But that's coming too. So that's the deleting. If the invoice happened to be for a work order, you can still delete it as long as it hasn't been delivered. Now that work order will not have an invoice attached to it. And if you wanted to re-invoice that work order, you'd have to reopen that work order and re-invoice it and make any corrections you needed to do. So that's a nice feature. It's been added. And make sure you go into your security settings and make sure you turn that off for anyone you don't want to be able to delete an invoice. Okay, the last thing I want to go through today is a new feature that is going to be coming out very soon. It's actually somewhat released. It's kind of more in a beta mode right now. It's our central station integration. And we are building a central station integration to talk to different central station platforms. Currently, we have done with the affiliated central station, Avant-Garde, Rapid Response, Security Central, and UCC. So if any of those are your central stations, those are complete. Another central station that's going to be done relatively soon is CMS. We have everything from them, and we're going to be adding that as well. If your central station was not listed and you would like them to be added, let us know. We could contact them, or you can have them contact us, and we could talk to them about creating the integration. So here's how the integration works. When you go into your, oh, I got to go into a different customer. Let me go into Michael Marks here. So when you go into your customer and you click on Sites and Systems, and let me just come over here and click on the system. So I'm now looking at the burglar alarm for Michael Marks. And you'll notice it says Central Station UCC. Now, I won't bore you with the setup of this and how you have to do that. We'll do that after the next release once this is fully released. But you'll notice there's a new field here. It says their account number. Now, the account number might be the same as your system number. This is what we link to the central station. So if you want to use a different system number than the actual account number, that's fine. If you do not put an account number in here, the system will try to link off of the system number. So the system number is kind of like the secondary fallback if you don't have an account number. Now, you'll notice if the central station integration is turned on for that central station, you'll see a new tab down here, and this says UCC. That's the central station. If you click on it, and you'll notice it says data provided by UCC. This is not data stored within the AlarmBiller database. This is data that's coming back directly from UCC. And this tells me the details of the account. This is the account's name and address and phone number, the status of the account, the contacts. These are from the central station. You could see the contact information. You could see the zone information, as well as you can see the history of the alarm history. And this would be everything that's in the history log. If you only wanted to see the alarm events, you would check this. Now, this account currently doesn't have any history. Let me go back to the site. So that was data from UCC. Let me go back to my systems. Oh, I got to go back to the customer for a second. And let's go to this other site. I believe it's this one right here. And this is data that's coming from a bold central station. And if I click on it here, again, you'll see that the data, sometimes it could take a little bit for the data to come back. That's really, we're just waiting for the response from the server. But here's the history. And this is all the history that we had for this one. You notice it could be a lot of data that comes back depending on the type of history they have. And again, I have the beta release. In the full release of this, you'll be able to click on the actual line item and see the raw signal data. Now, the raw signal data is different from every central station platform. So it will look different depending on who the central station platform is. So again, this is our phase 1 release of the central station integration. Depending on most of the central stations will also allow us that you'll have the ability to put the account in test right from here. Phase 2 of the integration, and we want to get feedback from our users. We will add other data fields. So if there's other fields that are in the integration that we just didn't pick up, you'll let us know. We'll add those. But we're also going to come up with the ability where you can actually push a new account into the central station. Day 1, you're not going to have that, but that is something that is coming real soon. Okay. So let's see. A few questions came in. One was a central station that they want us to log into. The next one, can we make central station changes in AlarmBiller and we'll update the central station? Day 1, no, but the answer to that is we're going to work with the central stations and we're going to add that. So we're going to get to the point where we can actually not only add a new account, but maybe add a new contact and zone and do different things. And it's going to be dependent on the software from the central station. Some allow it, some don't allow it. So we have to work with them on an individual basis. But the answer is we want to make it more interactive with that. So that's a real nice feature. Now, what's also nice is if you're inside of a work order, and this one doesn't have one, but if you're inside of a work order, so let's just create a new one real quick here. You know, what's nice is if you needed to, like let's say you're working on a work order and you wanted to see the central station data right from here, there's a link to open up the system right from here. And what I would suggest to do is right-click on it and just say open in a new tab. This would then open that into a new tab and take you right to the system information. So that's a nice way to be able to get to the information right from the work order itself. So I think it's a really nice feature to be able to get to the central station data and see what's going on while you're working on something. Okay, So that's the central station integration. You're going to be hearing more about that as time comes on. A few more things just before I let you go that I want to make some announcements on. One is not this weekend, but the weekend after next, we are going to be doing a pretty major maintenance update to the AlarmBiller. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes updates we're doing there. We're updating our database to the most current version. We're doing a lot of things in there. And AlarmBiller will be down for about 3 or 4 hours the following Saturday. We will send out a notice so you'll know exactly when that's going to occur. When that's done, and we already have this running in our test environment, the performance and speed of AlarmBiller, you are going to see, which we think right now is very fast. It's going to be lightning fast. I mean, things that take 800 milliseconds take 200 milliseconds. So that, when you look at that, that's 4 times as fast. So it's less than a second now to do something, and it becomes less than a quarter of a second. It's so fast, and really, it's going to help out the speed and performance of the system. The other thing by doing this upgrade, it just gives us more advanced tools to add even more cool features to the application. So expect to see some of those. We apologize for any inconvenience when we do the upgrade, but we'll do it on a weekend, so we're not doing it during normal business hours. So that's all I have for today. I want to ask one poll question before we go, and that is, do you currently allow your customers to pay with credit cards and e-checks? So just take a few moments and answer that. I hope it's 100% yes, and if not yes, it's not yet, but we plan to, because you really should be doing that. If not, let us know. We can walk you through how to do that. And so that's all. Again, that's all I have today. So again, I want to thank you for watching this webinar. If there's any last questions, please ask those. And we do have one last question, so let's go through that. Can the end user see the central station information? Great question. And the answer is, currently we did not put that into the web portal. We are going to look for feedback from the users and see what you want. If you want us to, it's really not a big deal. We can put that same tab and that information in there. So unfortunately, I don't have a poll to do that, but if you just want to actually type in right now a question, yes, make it available for the end users or not, but we'll do a more detailed follow-up on this to see. But my feeling is I don't see why not. I think it makes it nice for the user to be able to see that if you want to, but maybe we have to make a setting where you could actually choose to allow that active on your web portal or not. So again, thank you again for joining today's webinar. One more question just came in. I'll try to answer that. Is there going to be a function for payment to be made on a monthly basis towards a client's account instead of a specific invoice? That's a very good question. Truthfully, I haven't even thought of that, but I don't see why we couldn't do that and just create it so that every month the customer wants to pay $50 on account and it will just post on account. Yeah, that's a great question. I won't use anyone's name here, but I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about where you're coming from on that and why you would want that. But that is something that we could probably do. And one more question came in. Yes, make Central Station available to end users and make changes to the call list. Okay, very interesting. So not only can the end users do that, but they can update their call list from there. I think that's very practical, and I could see the importance and the benefit of that. Okay, well, that's it. I'm going to stop the questions. Again, thank you for joining today's, and we look forward